Have you ever wanted to discover what's missing in your life? Metaphysics is available to all and is part of your life even if you don't know it. Welcome to Metaphysics, a view through the veil with Barb Crowley. Together we'll explore the mysteries behind metaphysics and how to use it to have a deeper understanding and advantage in life. And now here's your host, Barb Crowley.
Hi, this is Barb Crowley, and welcome to Metaphysics, a view through the veil. Today we're talking about divine interventions and manifesting. Karoleen Fober has experienced more than 450 divine interventions, which she has tracked on a daily basis. This has helped Karoleen establish systems enabling the rest of us to expand and strengthen our own spiritual abilities to use as our superpower, as she does in her own life. She has brought all of this information into her book, Opening to Divine Intervention, Expand and Strengthen Your Intuitive Abilities and Spiritual Connection, which she is going to share with us today. Welcome to the show, Karoleen. I'm so glad you're on.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Thanks. I'm going to start with what's divine interventions?
Well, my definition is an experience, a happening where it's something that is not from the physical world. This is something that is divine and probably from the spiritual world, and you can't explain it. And it's probably better than you could ever imagine, the things that start happening. So
can you give me a quick example before we go into how you got here?
Well, in the book, I have 15 different types of divine intervention. And so there's so many. I call them all miracles.
Yeah.
But I did feel the need to divide them up so I could kind of know what I was explaining. Some are dreams, some are premonitions. Some are what I call natural phenomenon in the natural world. So it can get quite interesting. One day I go outside and take some pictures, and my face is in the sky with a beautiful message about how to write my book. So it's there's people say, well, how do these messages come? I said, well, they come in various forms. So you have to be kind of awake. So they're going to happen in the physical world, and then they're going to happen to you where you sense things. And so there's, you just have to be ready. And that's part of my work, is to help people, really open up so that you can be ready and receive these great messages.
And recognize them. That's a big thing I find, where I have to say to people, you don't see this? This just happened and you don't see this? So yeah, sometimes it's recognition. And how did you, first of all, I have got to give you credit for keeping track of 450 divine interventions. Most of us go through our day, recognize it hopefully, and then we're off. We don't keep track. So, that is a major achievement to me.
Well, but, I just piggyback on that, in that it was incredibly helpful for me, and I was led to do that. That's how that's how this kind of book came about. And that is one thing throughout the book. I do invite people to start writing down some of these amazing experiences and put the date on them, because we get busy. We forget some things. And so the book is really designed to help you stimulate your own not only abilities, but the things that have already happened, the divine interventions that you've already received, and you might have forgotten about them.
A lot of them you do forget about, you know, and then somebody brings it up and it's like, oh my God, of course that was huge, but you've forgotten. Yeah. So when did it start for you? How did you start to recognize that this was happening?
Well, as far as my spiritual connection, I was one of these kids that my parents, my mom especially, and my grandmothers, I was praying as a very young child. My family did go to church. I was raised a Methodist, and I was drawn to this. It got my attention,
Hmm.
and I love praying. So I probably, as soon as I could talk, my mom and I were praying before we would go to bed at night. So that it was part of my life as far as the connection. And then one day when I was about 8 at school, I was in a group of people, and one kid was talking about the weekend and what they'd done. And then he said, "You know what happened?" And I said, "This happened." And there's 8 to 10 kids, and they all went like, "How do you know that happened?" And I was
Yeah.
looking the same shocked, like, "How come you guys don't know that that's what happened?"
Hmm.
So I was finally attuned, and we now know that in the age somewhere about 6 to 8, for lots of us, that is when, we're going to school, we're learning math, we're learning how to read. There's lots of learning going on. And if that family, that culture doesn't continue the spiritual connection piece, people can put it way on the back burner.
Yeah.
So early on, but it also, I was a little shy about that. I went a little quiet. Um, but it was something that was a presence to me, and then it just kept unfolding, and I would have experiences, but I just kept quiet about them and moved on because life is busy.
Hmm. Yeah. You took them as normal in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I certainly um utilized the information that I was receiving, and
Hmm.
I think that's the piece. If we were really to think again, that's why I went through my entire life, is I think if people go through it a little bit and focus, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember when grandma died. I
Hmm.
remember how I felt. I
Right.
remember, and I was 19 when one of my grandmothers died, and I I had that experience of total sadness, but I
Hmm.
also had the shift of having her in the presence of my life more than when she, on earth, because at that time I was in college. People did, do long distance phone calls very often. So
Right.
I felt the presence of her in my life, and I think everybody does too if they'll admit it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different relationship. It
Hmm.
changes.
Hmm.
In a way, it becomes more multidimensional, which is
Yeah.
weird, and a more
Yes.
full experience, a more full relationship after they've passed on.
Yes.
It's kind of
And
odd.
it, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Transformation is very interesting, and so it's also, I think, it's a focus that many people will eventually get to,
Hmm.
um, because we're all going to, have our loved ones transform, and especially those deepest love bonds. Those are the ones that are the hardest,
Yeah.
and they can open you up. They can, you'll start reading a book that you maybe would have never picked up
Mhm.
before because you want that connection still.
And you went through that with your mom's illness. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Well, when my mom died, there's so much to do in the house, but about 3 months after she died, that's when my grief really started happening.
Hmm.
And I had been watching Teresa Caputo on TV. And so I just found it
Who is that? The
the Long Island
Long
medium.
Island? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so, and that would be a plane ride. And I was very depressed when my mom died. I mean, do we ever think our mom's going to die? I didn't, I
No,
guess.
no.
And it
Can't
just,
imagine without her. Yeah.
yeah. And so my dad had died earlier. And so when they're both gone, it's, for me, it was just it was really hard.
Hmm.
So I was able to, focus on my family. I never missed a client appointment. I think because you feel good when you're distracted a little bit from
Yeah.
a sadness.
Yeah.
But I was in bed a lot for 2 years, and so early on, I said I need a medium, and I was going to get on a plane and go see Teresa Caputo.
Hmm.
And then she tells everybody on her show that it's a 2-year wait. And I said, I don't have 2 years. So
Wow.
I prayed to
Yeah.
God and I said, you know what? Um, she said on her TV show, she said, um, all the people that want to talk to me, I just love that. But there are plenty of great mediums locally. And I just said, well, I'm depressed. I don't know if I can have the energy to find one, but God can help me. I said, God, if you think this would help me, I sure could use some help in connecting with my mom. Well,
Mhm.
2 weeks later, my husband said, hey, let's get you out of the house. We need some things at Staples. Let's go. I said, okay, I'll go. I met a woman who I knew who was having a divine uh, uh, thing at her church, and she invited me. And so the day of, I really didn't feel like it, but I
Mhm.
felt that divine little help. Sometimes our
Right.
angels push us right out of bed. And I went, and there's about 40 people, all of us in a circle. And I was really feeling better. And I kept noticing a woman to my right we were in a circle. She was about 7 seats away. And I just, was attracted to her. And I'd look at her, she'd look at me. After the service, I went up to her and I said, I just feel like I need to talk to you. And she said, I felt the same way. And she said, what do you do? I said, well, I'm an intuitive business and life mastery coach. And I said, what do you do? She says, well, I'm a medium. And I went,
Oh, wow.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
divinely led to
And what
these
did she
things.
tell you, though? What did she
Oh,
say?
well, I said, I told her a little bit about me, and then we scheduled it before I went to Florida that year. And it was I have it all in the book.
Mhm.
By the way, here's like this cover. I love the cover
Right.
because
I do too, actually. I do too.
thank you. It
Yeah.
was divinely given to me. And so for the watchers, this the book. And
Right.
she, I she came to my house and she just told me so many things. And I thought, well, this might be a resource person for me and my other clients. And I told her up front, I said, I'm a little bit of a hard grader, so I'm not going to give you any information until I
Hmm.
get 3 direct hits, and she was fine with that.
Right.
So by the third thing, I mean, I was trying to keep it together, like try to act like, okay, not say anything. My mom worked at a bank. She nailed that. She, the train had come by and she says, oh, your mom came in on the train. I said, my mom loved to travel on the train.
Hmm.
And then the fact that she goes, oh, now I see your mom playing the piano, and now she's hopping over to the organ. And my mom played the piano and the organ for over 30 years,
Wow. Yeah.
everywhere, church, funerals, weddings.
Hmm.
And so it was just such a connection. And then all these people came. I think I had about 12 people show up for me. And
You
she
mean
said, oh,
spirits or?
spiritual.
Okay.
Yes. And my loved ones. And she said, I rarely get this many. And I said,
Hmm.
I know why. And she said, why? I said, because I've been so depressed. They all came to show that love and
Yeah.
encouragement and support for me. And after our session, which I took notes, and much of it is in the book,
Hmm.
um, she said, well, you're just like me. And I said, I'm not sure about that. But
Yeah.
she opened me up, and it was that's a one thing I tell my clients or people that I read for, is that, and I'm sure you've had the same experience,
Hmm.
is that when you have a reading or when you connect with your loved ones, it's going to expand, because it's like getting on the bike the first time. Maybe it's a little wobbly. Maybe you don't
Yeah.
quite understand everything that's happening, but by the fifth time you're zipping around on that bicycle.
Hmm.
So she really encouraged me, and I was open, and I said, if I were to expand my abilities, because I knew I was very, uh, I definitely knew when things were happening. Um, and other things probably. But I hadn't given myself credit. And that's, I guess, one of the biggest points I want to share today, is that we all think we can't do it. Like, oh, Barb and Karoleen can, but I can't. And that's why I teach, because they really can if they want to, and if
Hmm.
they want to focus a little bit. So I asked that first person, I said, what would I do if I were to expand? And she said, meditate. meditate. One word, meditate. And I started meditating. I'd always meditated, feel
What
very
type of meditation did you do? There are so
well.
many different types.
There's so many types, and this is a great topic as well, is that so many people, I've talked to people that have tried to meditate for 2 decades and they're just lost. And I said, you're making it.
I could never meditate. I'm still not very good at
Okay,
it.
well, this will be
I
great
do
for
it
you.
in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, my guides tell me they love working with me because I make everything easy.
Good.
It's nothing has to be that difficult, and you can do it any way you want. I just close my eyes. I meditate before I get out of bed. I'll wake up maybe around 5, 6, and if I don't have to get out of bed, I'm meditating. So I started meditating, and to this very day, probably every day I've meditated at least minimum, and I don't keep track, but I'm going to guess at least 2 hours a day. And you can
Wow.
meditate while you're doing the dishes. You can meditate while you're,
What
deadheading your
is
flowers.
meditation to you
Well,
then?
meditate,
Because yeah, I
meditate.
can't do it while I'm doing the dishes. I can
Okay,
disappear,
okay.
but
Well,
meditating, I don't know that.
well, meditating for me is really where you just get quiet and you kind of let go of anything physical, even the thoughts that you have, and they can still come in. I always tell people, well, the thoughts are like clouds. They're going to flow in and flow out. Clouds are
Mhm.
always moving, doesn't matter. But you can get quiet, and what that does, it is a miracle in itself, is that it quiets everything so far down that all the negativity just it takes a nap. Okay, it's like
Yeah.
relax, really rejuvenate, and it's really for your health as well. Think about all your cells. They're so happy because they're not like I always say, well, disease is dis-ease. It's your disease thoughts.
Hmm.
And for many people. And so it's really something that helps every part of your life, including connecting spiritually. So it just calms everything down energetically. And it takes care of resistance. What is resistance? Resistance is when we spend too much time in our left brain thinking, processing it, prove it to me, make it logical. That's all fine and well, and we'll always use it. But they tell us that 95% of the time we're stuck in our left brain. Well, our right brain is where the intuitive side is. That would be like we're given two hands or two
Hmm.
legs and we only use one.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So the 95% left brain, logical brain, and the 5% intuitive side of our brain, we need to start relaxing that a little bit and balance it out. And
Hmm.
what's interesting, it will help every area of your life. I was just reading about Einstein, and they actually did an autopsy of his brain. And it was fascinating because they said they'd never seen so much uh,
Connections.
connectivity.
Yeah.
Connectivity. They'd never seen it before, and they're still looking. They're still looking at his brain.
Mm.
And he said, I mean, he was talking about intuition all the time. So
Right.
it's a real invitation to relax, and meditation is one of the best ways to do that. And then allow in the messages, because if we're in our negative, a lot of times when we're in our brain, we're not into the happy place. We're into, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. How am I going to get it all done? Is that person going to call me? Do I have enough money? I mean, all
Hmm.
these things that take
Right.
us away from maybe the messages that are really waiting for you to even help you with some of these problems and issues. So meditation is just key. And I invite everybody, do it any way you want. If you feel relaxed, I have people sit out on your deck, go for a walk. Have the cat sit on your lap and purr. If that isn't a meditation, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any
So
way you
that
want.
stopping your brain is the
Yeah.
biggie. Like
Yeah.
doing the dishes. I was impressed you can meditate doing the dishes. And,
Oh
my
yeah.
brain's going like mad of, I got to do this, I got to do that. If I don't have a book on tape stuck in my ears, which is the
Well,
only time I can clean my house.
that's the other thing. People
Yeah.
are listening to radio, TV. We've got all these great inventions to help us do that. But I'm just going to tell you, if you're focused, if you don't give yourself time to open,
Hmm.
to those connections. And I'm not saying, it's great to read the book, but it give yourself some time every day, build it up, and then notice how your life shifts, and it'll help your health as well. So I invite everybody to get on the meditation train, and just however you want to do it.
Okay, I'm going to push you on this. So I'm
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
the dishes. I'm in
yeah.
the middle of planning and panicking on what didn't get done.
Okay.
And how do I shut it off? How do I stop it?
Well, the field of coaching is so magnificent. And I've been a coach almost 25 years, a
Mhm.
professional coach. I was coaching, by the way, it's in the book, when I was 5 years old. I was sitting in kindergarten and I was helping people before the bell rang. So I love this whole thing. But coaching teaches you that be 100% responsible for your life. Now, what does that mean? It means that you get to choose what you're going to think about. So don't feel like the Lone Ranger. We're all in this together. And I've had to transition. I've transformed myself from having more negativity and worrying. And what I learned to do was, if a negative thought would pop in, and they do, I
Mhm.
would just go, do I want that thought or not? No, I'm 100% responsible for what I think. So that whole thing, the 100% responsible for your life, means you do to control what you think about. So it's a real invitation to elevate yourself, evolve yourself to that place where you really are in charge of those thoughts. And you know, I don't mind being called the Pollyanna. That to me is a compliment. So it is truly, the negativity are blocks to your intuition.
Mhm.
And I just tell everybody, be a little police person. And if you find yourself, I mean, I'm normal. Like, I'll be upset about one little thing that happened that day. And you know what I do? Karoleen, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Just rant and rave, whatever you do. But the difference is, I have shortened up my rant. It's very short. Even my clients, they get on the calls and, something happened. I go, okay, we're getting the timer out, and I time it. I'm joking, say, but
Yeah.
I have a timer. Trust me. I said, okay, you got 2 minutes. You can say whatever you want, get the negativity out, and then we'll move on. And they start laughing. So they've transformed in just the fun of it, and the
Mhm.
reminder that you're in charge. And this is serious business, because if you understand metaphysics, what you're thinking about is creating, what your body is dealing with. And so I'm working on that so many times with people that come to me with issues, let's say health issues. And of course, you're going to use your doctor, but why not use, I mean, this is a this is a designed masterpiece, and your body knows how to heal, and it also knows how to go into disease at disease. So your job is to say, all right, I don't care, that happened, I don't care. And so I've learned how to say, I don't care, I'm
Mhm.
fine. The
Right.
sky is not going to fall. The world will not come to an end, probably.
Mhm.
And if it does, we'll have a good place to go to. So
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Um, that I always want to go to a place where I'm not thinking, and that is a
Yes.
difficult place. Um, and I often say to people, you have to play, you have to have the balance, and that's when you can go to a place that you don't think, where
Yeah.
you are playing with something. You're anything from, racquetball to art to, but I've
Yeah.
never been able to do it washing the dishes.
Well, who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
tomorrow you will. But the
Yeah.
other piece I will tell you, I have people that have a real hard time with journaling.
Hmm.
And in fact, one of my clients, she was so excited because she had tried to journal. Meditation and journal is just hard for some people because it does
Right.
force you to get a little quiet.
Hmm.
And she said, your course helped me so much because I just couldn't get there. And I mean, she teaches yoga too, so this just didn't make sense to me. But sometimes we need one more person saying, come on. It, and I will tell people, people don't realize how negative they are. I don't realize how negative I am. And so I always point the finger at me. I always say, how can I be in the higher frequencies? And I tell people, if higher frequency means better, it means satisfied, appreciation, content, happy, blissful. So that's when I'm talking about higher frequencies. So that's a great word for it, because a lower frequency is going to be the worry, the distress, the dis-ease. I'm not at ease at something, anything negative, worried about anything. And I can prove this. If you're still here, something worked out. And that was you know what I mean? And we've all had issues where you don't know if it's going to happen. That it didn't happen on time, but it still happened. I think we still live in a divine energy system created by the great creator. I don't think we have to be so controlling to think it's not going to work for us. And I had a gal that I was sharing all the things that were happening to me one day in a group. It was a potluck thing. And she said, "Why is everything working out so great for you? Why do you see your face?"
No, we hate you.
Yeah, it's like, come on. And I said, well, I am going to tell you, and I teach this. I've been teaching this for a really long time. And I said, if you can get it, it's almost so simple, people miss it every time. I say, and I said, I feel your anger. Okay. Instead, you could have been incredulous, like, that is so cool. I want to learn how. She was coming from a lower energy. She was like angry.
Right.
And she couldn't quite, she's here and I'm up here. And I'm going, come on up, because I won't go down anybody's mud puddle, right? Because that's quicksand. You can't get them out. So I'm like, okay, I'll throw you a rope, but I'm not getting in that mud puddle of quicksand. And you need to get out of that and never walk around it. You don't need negativity. And so she said to me, and very angrily, still anger. And I was saying, hasn't anything great happened to you, like recently, that you can't explain, talking about divine intervention? She goes, nope, nothing great had ever happened for her that was a miracle.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, well, guess what? We're both old enough. I just said it. Because, see, I don't buy it. And this is my proof, because I've never met anybody more negative than her. And I said, I don't buy it. I said, you can't tell. And that's when I got a little incredulous. I said, you mean to tell me, I don't know how old she was, but, past 60. I said, you mean to tell me you have never had anything unbelievable happen that you can't explain, and you might as well just say it was a miracle? And then I shut up. And then she said, oh my gosh, that one time. And I okay, let's hear it. What happened? What happened? Well, she was 8 or 9 years old. Her mom sent her out to mail a letter down the street, and a guy in a white van stopped her and said, come over to my van. I have something to show you. And right then and there, she heard her voice. There was no one around her.
Right.
And a loud voice said, you are in danger. Run. And she ran home. And I said, do you see?
Right.
I said, I'm always going to hold out. People forget. So she was walking around thinking she'd never had a miracle. And I said, that miracle probably saved your life.
Definitely
so
did.
I don't buy it when people they haven't.
But how did you, so you got the one miracle out of her.
Yes.
So how did you kind of turn her around to say, start to look, start to recognize?
And that's not my work. That's her work. And so I did a great job, I think, of uncovering it. I said, my job is to dig for the nuggets. And here is the nugget. And if you can't identify that as a nugget and let it elevate you, I mean, like I say, if God couldn't help her and she couldn't remember that, I don't know if I'm going to help her. So I don't sit there and think I have to do the work. It's her work. So I can do the inviting. I can do the reminding. I can say, oh my gosh, that. And she allowed me to put it in the book. That's in the book.
Yeah.
So but it's meant to, again, I'm not responsible for your life. You are. So you want to get real pristine with how you think, with how you, and you know what it comes down to is beliefs. So, because our beliefs dictate
See,
what,
now I'll go acknowledgement.
yeah,
Belief is forward, and
yes,
acknowledgement is, oh my God, there it is. You don't have to believe.
yeah,
You just start to recognize it. Well,
yes.
belief takes a muscle that a lot of people have not used.
But this is
And
where they get
and
stuck.
yeah.
And that is why I dig for those beliefs, because here's why. And we'll get to manifesting a little bit later. But
Hmm.
in the work that I do, I, if we are, if the beliefs are down here,
Hmm.
and this is the point, your beliefs dictate what you think, say, and behave and do. All of your outer decisions, behaviors, all come from your beliefs. That's why I dig, because it's one thing. People say, well, I can't, it's hard to change my behavior. I said, until you change the belief. And that's why I dig. And that's why my clients have so much success, because we're going to go deep. And once they go, oh my gosh, I do believe that. Then you replace that belief for a better, higher frequency belief. Like nothing good happens to me. People will say that. It's like the thesis of why their day isn't going well. And that's what I say. You got a timer, 2 minutes. I don't want to hear one more word.
Hmm.
And I'm bold with people. And I say, they'll sit there and say, what did this one guy say? I don't even know. And I said, you can never say that again. At least don't say it around me, because I won't put up with it. Because my job, they're paying me. They're paying me
Hmm.
big bucks to help them double their income. They're paying me to solve their relationships. How about their health? Oh yeah, we're
Right.
doing that too. So if this is serious work, uh, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not going to let anybody buy with it. Let's face it, the the people that want the most, the people that do the best in life, they've had success. We're designed to evolve. We want to get better. Once we get the tricycle, my gosh, we want the bike, and then I suppose somebody wants the motorcycle.
And
We're
then the
designed to,
car, yeah.
and then the car, and then the airplane. I mean,
Yeah.
we're designed to evolve. So that's exciting. And so people want that.
Hmm.
People want to know how to get what they want without working too hard. So we do the hard work. It's kind of like a person, and I that's why I get into manifesting so much, because people are doing manifesting backwards. They're messing with
Yeah.
their manifesting.
Well, let me ask you this before we go into manifesting. Do you have to change your belief system before you can manifest?
Well, I, I would, because most
Yeah.
people are, their beliefs are backwards. Their beliefs are very negative. And so that's why, because I'm a manifesting and intuition coach, and I teach you how to use both of them together, which is amazing. But if I can tell, usually, I can tell right away why somebody might not be getting what they want. It's how they sound, what they're saying, and it's either, and it's so simple, it's crazy. Negative energy. I don't know why this is happening to me. Oh, you don't hear that from me, do you? I don't. We've been on. We spent what, half an hour or so together, and you are not going to hear that from me, because I have spent my lifetime watching, learning, and understanding this. Behavior is a big deal to me, and it's energy. So we live in God's divine energy system,
Mhm.
and it works perfectly. So you don't ever get mad at the divine energy system. You got to get the mirror out. That's why, if anyone's going to point a finger, I'm pointing right here. So I say, I understand. I've made my own mistakes, and I've even gotten beautiful divine messages, and I go right into my left brain and talk myself right out of it. And then, oh, I should have listened.
Yeah.
So we're all a work in progress, and there's no judgment. But I'm just here to tell you, if you find yourself in the lower negative energies, this is why I didn't get this job, this is why nobody likes me. I mean, I just sit there and
Hmm.
go, I mean, isn't that kind of funny? um and I say, no, we're up here now, in the higher frequencies, which means, and to make it very simple, we're magnets. We're people magnets.
Hmm.
So if you're feeling any negativity for whatever reason, fear, doubt, anger, resentment, jealousy, that is what you're creating more of. You're saying, come on over, all the bad stuff. If
Mm-hmm.
you are going, you know what? Maybe I was a little negative yesterday, but today I'm going to do this. I'm going to get back in the higher frequencies. Life works out for me. I just love how everything's working and I don't even have to know how. And people are going to be great. I'm going to meet a great podcast host today. And then notice how things are going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm pretty sure this is a fountain of youth because if you can stay in that higher frequency, your body's going to feel way better. Even if you have a cold, you know what I do? I don't even get one anymore. But if I did in the past, I'm looking for a comedy. As soon as I can, I'm going, I got to watch a comedy so I can laugh. I need to feel better. What do
Mm-hmm.
we do with babies when they're crying or fussing? Oh, we're on it. We pick that baby up. We're rocking, we're singing, we're bringing in a little toy. Are they hungry?
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. We say, and so it's one thing to know what I'm talking about, but it's another thing to live it. And so that's what we're really doing is learning how to live better and be 100% responsible for your life and stay in the high frequencies, for heaven's sakes.
There,
Even when it looks a little cloudy out.
yeah. So you're really breaking a bad habit and establishing a new, better habit by
Absolutely.
looking at the bright side.
Yeah,
That
and
will
what I'm
also,
doing, more importantly, I am following the divine energy system that we live in. It's it like our typewriters, our keys. If you think that you're writing a story about a car, CAR, and you keep hitting the key, you're writing a story about a cat. You're not
yeah,
communicating.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody's thinking, oh, it's a cat. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's more than just it's more than, oh, if you could just break that bad habit. Well, it is breaking a bad habit, but it is honoring the divine energy system, that it's a system, it works perfectly, and we're the ones that are messing with it.
Mm-hmm. And this
So
is
I do get
taking
a
you,
little clear on that.
yeah, this is taking you out of a distrust of life to a trust of life, that life will
Yeah,
support you, that the
right.
universe will support you.
And this is a great thing. I asked that really negative person one, at the same time, I said, let's see if we can get this really clear for you. And I said, who's in charge of your breathing? She says, well, I am. And I said, nope, you're not in charge of your breathing. It's an automatic system. And I said, if you were in charge of your breathing, you would have to wake up, 1,000 times a night and say, breathe now.
Yeah,
So this is
yeah.
a system, people. This is a system. It's not going to go away. Doesn't matter what you think it is or what you don't believe in. This is a system. Science is proved
Mm-hmm.
it, keeps proving it. So it's more about your wrestling with the divine energy system instead of cooperating with the divine energy system. This is
People
how it works.
who are fear-based, what I call fear-based, often it's coming from a trauma in a childhood. Something happened they didn't think they had control. 9/11 is a perfect example. You know, the people who experienced 9/11 maybe not there, but let's say the kids who their friends or them lost somebody in
Yeah.
9/11, and that
Yes.
day was a trauma to them, where oh, my dad works in the World Trade. Is he going to be okay? And he wasn't. He wasn't.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and that so that fear of not trusting life and being afraid that something's going to happen, and you cannot protect yourself, those all came from that, those couple hours of
Yes.
9/11, and the aftermath.
Yes. Well,
How
the
do you
fear,
work with those people?
and this is a great question. And I mean, we've all lost people,
Hmm.
or we will.
Right,
We're
right.
all going to
But it's
transform.
not always a trauma, I mean, it's
Well,
always an upset,
it let's
and a
just face it.
loss, but not so much a trauma.
Well, yes and no.
Mm.
Um, because it's more about the love bond and how much that was tied in and how much you even understand. I will tell you this, that I went through a lot of pain. I had to feel the pain of, because part of the trauma is that you can't handle what happened. And part of the trauma. And so it's like, we don't want to go there. And so, but it did happen. And so I do understand trauma for sure. And there is a point, and it goes back to feeling it. It's like going to the place where you can be safe to feel it and realize, okay. And then it's also the invitation of understanding death. I used to be so afraid of death and all of that. So I relate. I think everybody can relate to what you're saying, Barb. And because of all these things, one of the things I discovered is that because of my fear of death, I didn't really go into it more to understand what it really, really is. It's a transformation, because my belief for sure is that we are a soul. We are divine energy. We come from divine energy. And so the science teaches us that energy never goes away. It just transforms. So as a culture, we actually need to be learning that and to get it a little bit more comfortable with it. And so what was very difficult, when my mom died, or when your dad dies, or when anything, and can be very traumatic. There's the fear of it, but there's also the understanding that, oh, they're there and they're watching over you, and they're part of your spiritual team now. So there's a lot in there to understand. And that's why you and I have a job this is the job we want to do, to help people understand, connect them with loved ones, and help them understand they're still there, just in a different way.
Hey, I'm going to pivot here to manifestation. I want to hear how to manifest. This is one of the pillars of your belief system, of your work, really. So I would like to go there and hear how to manifest.
And I give a lot of credit to uh, Esther Hicks and her work with Abraham. That just resonated with me. And so I've read a lot of her books and studied that and practiced. And so there's basically 5 steps and 3 main ones. But, desire what you want is the first step. And then the second thing is to understand that you are in a partnership with the divine energy system. You have a spiritual team that's working for you and with you. And remember, you're a magnet. So there's all these amazing things happening to help you get what you want. So in the second step, you have to acknowledge and respect the spiritual partnership and relax. So once you decide what you want, you don't sit there and go, and this is why we talk about having your energy pristine, where you're get out of the low energy and go right up to the top and say, oh yeah, I'm going to get it. And where it's okay to go, I wonder how I'm going to get it. But to really let go and know, hey, you're in a partnership. You're not alone in this. And how wonderful, what a wonderful way to go through life, knowing that this partnership is going to just land things for you. Your job is to stay in the higher frequencies and go, this is going to be so cool. So when I say to somebody, you know what you want, let's say you want to double your income. Well, a lot of people don't even get there because they don't know how they're going to double their income.
Right.
And I say, that's not your problem. That's not your worry. Would you like to double your income? Well, yes. I go, that's all we need. Because we don't need to know right now, but it will start coming. And I have, enough business background, almost 40 years, to help with a little bit of this, but
Mhm.
this is manifesting to its core, is to know what you want, understand that you're going to get that or better
Mhm.
in the right time. And then the second step is to stay appreciative in the and receive it. Just stay like, I'm going to get it. I'm allowing it. You're not sitting there going, oh, this is going to be so hard. No, it's going, wow, it's going to be so easy. It's going to land. I don't even know when it's going to land, but it's going to be great.
Mhm.
So your job in step 2 is just to stay with it. Like, man, I can't wait. Now you don't have to overly focus on it. You can just say, I'm going to get this. Great. Move on. Your life is busy. And then the third step is to pay attention. And this is where intuition comes in, where you're going to get messages. You're going to get, like, books are going to fall out. It's like, if that book falls off the shelf, you better read it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's why I say, if this is calling to you,
Mhm.
read the book. Um, take steps. So your job is not just to sit around and wait for your partner to do everything. Your
Right.
step is to know you have a partnership. They're doing everything they can. And you're going to say, hey, I'm going to stay aware. I'm going to be open and aware and receive these messages. And incrementally, they're going to happen. Now, sometimes they land just like that if you're really pristine about things. My favorite example of last year is when, after I wrote the book, I said, well, we need a major magazine. We need a major newspaper article. I didn't care where from, but I just said it one day. It just came out. And then I forgot about it, but I was like, oh yeah, it's going to happen. And then, you're getting busy with your work. 10 days later, the senior director of Women's World Magazine called me and said, oh, I would love to interview you about intuition. And they have over 6 million
Wow. Wow.
subscribers.
Yeah.
I never even heard of the magazine. Do you see what I mean? I
Mhm.
was like 10 days later. So the book has many, many examples. If you are really interested in manifesting, oh, you're going to want to read the book, because I don't know how many stories and experiences I've had about manifesting. And it's so fun. So that third step is, you're going to be doing some things, and you want to be so appreciative. You don't want to say, well, why did it come this way? Why didn't it come? When I got that call, I'm like, holy happy. It was like, wow. And
Mhm.
then I asked her, I said, how'd this happen? How'd you find me? From your end? Because I'm a little bit of a scientist. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And she said, well, we were doing an expert panel thing on intuition, and I just went to Amazon, because they do want to interview authors. She said, I typed in intuition. My book was somewhere on the top 10 of that, and she just called me. So
Mhm.
it's just exciting when you think. So I always say, I'm always going, what is it that you want? Because I love helping people get there. And part of it is getting your manifesting straight. So the third step, know what you want and desire. Second step is to know you've got a partnership, relax, be open, receive. And then third is appreciate and trust, and start paying attention and seeing what it is that you're part of it. Do you need to make a phone call maybe?
Mhm.
Um, and then the fourth step, this is key, you're going to love this, Barb, is notice when you are in the negative energy. Notice, because we all get there. We
Right.
think, well, when is this happening? Um, Now, I don't get there because I've practiced so long, but most
Mhm.
people go, when are they going to call? And they get a little frustrated. They go down in that negative energy. So your job is to notice, be that little police person, and say, oh, I'm being a little negative. In any way, a shape or form. And it's okay. You don't have to be pristine, crazy pristine, but
Mhm.
you have to start noticing when you're negative. And if you start noticing when you're negative and switch it up to positive, it'll change your life and health. And so so notice, fourth step is to notice when you're out of alignment, energetic alignment. And then the fifth step is get right back up to what is it that you want? What was it that you wanted? And maybe enough time has gone by that maybe you now know, oh, not only do I want an article, but who knows, maybe they want to interview, there's something more you might want to that specific thing. So it just keeps, it just keeps going. So.
And what happens, we talked about this a little bit before we came on. My big question is, we come in with a plan. And what happens if what you're trying to manifest is not in that plan? Or it may be even against that plan, but not in that plan.
Well, I love this question. And I mean, I think things are pretty simple, but there's just enough complication in it that makes it interesting, let's say. So I do believe we come here with a purpose, but we're given free will. So it can get, a little messy, a little sloppy. So sometimes we don't want to do. Do you think I wanted to write that book? I didn't know what book I was going to write. Do you see? I wasn't like going, I want to be an author. I want to write a book. That's not how this happened.
I have nothing to do today, so let me do something hard.
But I was told divinely that I would write a book. It's in the, all this is in the book. And it got my attention. Anything that gets your attention and you resonate, pay attention. Even if it's like, I don't think that's my plan. Well, do we really know what our plan is? Well, maybe they do. And so they're going to help you. And so there's a lot of question marks, and that makes it interesting. That makes it a little mysterious. But I say, you might meet one person. You might hear Barb and I today, and you might go, something clicked, something resonated. And it does change the trajectory of your life. So maybe there's lots of ways to get that plan figured out, right? It allows for creativity, for other people's input. So, I mean, I even think about this book, and I think there's a lot of people's stories in this book. It's not just my life. It's how I interacted with people, what happened with clients. So our plan is it's not rigid. Okay. And I don't believe we make mistakes. We just learn things. We expand. And we're here to evolve. So Earth is a perfect place because we have the dualities and, hot, cold, yes, no,
right. Rich,
more or less,
poor.
rich, poor, all of those things. But again, a lot of the things that we want as far as manifesting is, I say, relax. And if you are in the higher frequency, and it's kind of like this. It's like somebody says, oh, I made cookies. Well, most of us will get excited about that. She made cookies. This is going to be so good. We don't sit there and go, what kind of cookies are they? I don't know. Do I like lemon cookies?
Does it have chocolate chips?
Are we? And we have our preferences. This is the fun part. We have preferences. So you get to choose the cover of the book. You get to choose your publisher.
Right.
But there's all these choices. And so it is a bit, it gets kind of interesting and complicated, but it's actually simple. And so I knew I was going to write a book. I was told divinely. I didn't know at the time what the cover was. I even had a working title. We changed it. There's lots of things that happen along the way. And it's for our evolvement. It's for our fun, our bliss. It's to meet other people and develop friendships. And so it can be a lot of work. And there were times where I was tired writing that book, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's times where I just like, I don't know. But the book landed. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but you don't have to get so tight about the control of everything. It's more about, we're going to have a podcast and we're going to cover what's interesting at the moment. And we're going to say, wow, that was great. I hope we communicated, with your listeners. But too much control on anything, nobody's having any fun.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, and usually too much control. Some
Yeah.
people are born,
Yes.
very organized and control. A lot of people, it's fear based.
But I will
Control
say,
is fear based.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it just reminded me what you were talking about, reminded me that, and maybe you find this too, Barb. Do you find that people come to you because people come to me for more than just their, deceased loved ones? They come to me sometimes because there's a fork in their road. They've
Mhm.
come and maybe they are interested in what is my mission? And I say, well, the mission is to evolve. The
Mhm.
mission is to, learn and evolve and
I
also
call it
share.
expand your soul.
Yes,
So
expand your
yeah.
soul. I love that phrase.
Mhm.
But it's to really share your gifts. And we have more than one gift.
Mhm.
So it frees us up. It really frees us up. And I found this out, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. But they talked about how remember we were talking about the frequencies of feelings and
Mhm.
different emotions. Well, the frequency of authenticity, just being you,
Yeah.
is higher than the frequency of love, 4 times higher. Now,
Mhm.
they've now calibrated that. Now, what does that say? That frees everybody up. Everybody listening right now should just let out a sigh of relief. You
Right.
only have you only have to be yourself. And I mean, yeah, there's challenges in life, but I have found that even in the challenges, there's so many wins. There's so many things you learned if you can find the gifts. And that's why I
Mhm.
say with when I'm working with somebody that maybe there is some difficulties where let's find let's find a way out of this if there is something totally trauma, and
Right.
there's lots of healing options there. But let's also in a traumatic experience, maybe that person didn't understand death. Maybe they didn't, after the sadness, there's a process, grief.
Mhm.
But after down the road, hopefully everybody isn't just stuck. That's
Yeah,
that's
that's the
that's
problem. If you
that's the
get stuck,
problem.
yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
keep moving, but eventually you will find gifts, and and that's when it becomes miraculous.
Mhm.
Like, oh, if this hadn't happened. And many times the most difficult experiences of our lives, look at me with my mom. I mean,
Mhm.
I couldn't hardly get out of bed. I was thinking this is over. And I I had a whole new life. I understand death better. I help people.
Right.
This
Right.
is the beauty and the gift of my life. And that's what happened after she died.
Mhm.
So it's really something. But if we can find the gifts, that's that's where the that's where you really become empowered.
Okay, so now I'm afraid to sound negative,
Oh,
but
go ahead.
um, I honestly, my belief system is, let's say we're going to come in and learn about, and we've set it up. So let's say I want to learn about money. You know, well,
Right.
I'm going to come in, I'm going to learn, different lifetimes. I'm going to be very wealthy. I'm going to be very poor. I'm going to be inherited. I'm going to win the lottery. I'm going to experience money from every different way,
Hmm.
to fully that trajectory to fulfill my whole experience of money.
Yeah.
Well, let's say if this lifetime I'm going to come in and I'm going to be poor. Well, I'm manifesting money and I'm not getting it because
Hmm.
I'm going against my plan. So, how, and I'm saying I'm not getting it. I'm stuck in this
Right. Well, but
battle,
okay,
you know?
money is in the category of abundance. So it's really about a universal law of abundance.
Hmm.
And it's not just money, it's health, it's time,
Right.
feeling good,
But I'm
energy.
manifesting money.
Right.
you
Okay,
know?
that's fine. But there's probably if we dug a little bit and somebody wanted more money, I
Hmm.
say, well, we are going to have to get pristine um at And so, I mean, if I was working with you, I would find out a little bit about the past, just kind of catch me up with you type of thing. And then I would say, if there's anything negative, remember the magnetism. We live in the divine energy system. We can have a plan, but it's about, money, richness, abundance. It's kind of a mindset. It's a belief.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, I was a kid, we didn't have hardly any money, but I never felt poor. And
Neither
so
did I. I thought we were rich till I was an adult.
Exactly. And now that ties you to the feeling. So then you have to look at, are you scared of something? Are you scared? Well, what happens if you had more money? Well, you got to figure it out, and you probably have to start investing and
Yeah,
learn.
now it's a different job. Yeah.
There's a whole lot that goes with it. But one of the things that I say, and this is what I found in almost 25 years of professional coaching. So it's not like I just came out of the woodwork. Every time I've heard somebody say anything like they can't get something, I say, well, that's a belief. And I say, it just means that probably the belief has a strongest energy. So you could say, I read all these books, I did all this other stuff. And I say, yeah, great, that's going to help. But it's the feeling, it's the belief, it's the feeling of a belief. And I was kind of that way too. In my earlier life. And then I realized, well, there's other options. And so I started I really raised the vibration of abundance. And then, so abundance in everything. And so it's like, maybe somebody doesn't have very many friends, and so suddenly everybody's your friend. You see, it's kind of a belief. And so
so you shouldn't attach it to the thing, but to the feeling.
The feeling. Oh, yeah, because it's the magnetism, electromagnetic energy is what we're talking about. We're talking about energy. We're not talking about, it's kind of like you meet somebody and you're so stressed out and you're so tired that you don't have any energy, but you sit there and go, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. But you've got all this stuff that you haven't dealt with that's not going well in your life, and it's weighing you down a little bit. And so that's why I love coaching, because we're looking at all the areas of your life. So a lot of people come to me because they got a health issue. And so I always say, well, the best part about focusing on anything improving, whether it's your health, money, clients, I don't know, your environment, whatever you focus on, and this goes back to God's universal laws of focus and abundance, it's going to expand. That's why people say, Karoleen, it's like you're at a party. I go, I am at a party. I am. I mean, this is fun for me. I'm like, wow, how could it get any better than this? So I don't focus on anything that's that negative. And like my husband occasionally he'll say, well, this didn't happen. You know what I'm doing? If we're in the car, I'm looking out the window and I'm going, I love that sign. I am picking up the baby and distracting, because I know the effect of negativity on my cells. And that's what I'm trying to teach. And so I am amazingly pristine, and I'm getting better every day. That's all you can ask for. So, and everybody can improve. Everybody can get out. It is a choice. And hey, I had a great teacher, my mom. She, relatively speaking, she had a very difficult life. You would have never known it. She just, it was like the rain was just missing her. And she just wasn't that interested in, it wasn't that things weren't happening. She just wasn't interested. And she was more interested in, well, what could we do with this? So she was a true person. I dedicated the book to her. Mother's Day's coming up. Perfect time to talk about it,
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
for all of our listeners. But
The other thing I want to ask about manifestation
mhm,
is another thing where I've stepped back off of it, unless it's, get me my parking space, that kind of thing,
uh-huh,
is because when I was in my 20s and 30s,
yeah,
what I wanted and what I, thought I wanted out of life, were pretty specific in an area, but they were little because I couldn't think big. And
mm,
now at this age, I look back, I never would have picked how my life went. I wouldn't know. I had no, it wasn't in my world at all. I
right.
now live in Denver. Then I lived in New York. Denver to me, New Yorkers, right past New York, there is nothing there. So Denver, I never would have thought that I would live in Denver. And the way I got to Denver was even more weird. But now I can look back and I say to kids, don't look for it. You can't know. You can't know. So don't try to plan, because when you look backwards, you'll see how the dots connected, but you can't know looking forward. You don't, it's beyond your thoughts. You just don't ever think it. It's too out there, too big, it'll never cross your mind. I say to people, I'm on the train, I'm not driving. I'm just watching the scenery. you know.
Well, and that's a great, I mean, I think that's a great attitude. And I think too, um, you know, we all like certain parts of our life at different times.
Hmm.
And I even get into that occasionally, and I really get myself out of it as fast as I can. Um, like, like I don't want my husband to die,
Hmm.
but we're he's older, a little bit older than I am, and so I know that the probability is he'll go first. But that's not, we don't know that,
Right.
and so sometimes I can get a little sad, and then I think, well, wait a minute, we live in God's divine universe that provides everything,
Hmm.
everything. And so maybe I don't need to be so concerned about it. That fear of, oh, this is going to happen or that won't happen.
Right.
And so I do think that it's okay for us to just really enjoy the ride and go, wow, how'd that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, um,
So I was corporate New York,
okay.
corporate, the whole bit, corporate New York.
Hmm.
Um, I ended up in a commune in my 30s, late 30s, on a do over. That is not something that was ever, I didn't even know there were still communes out there. It really, there was no way I could have ever even thought it. And yet
Exactly.
it changed my life. So I went from corporate America in New York to natural products industry as it started and grew in Colorado. I'm telling you, there was no way I could have seen that coming. And yet, if I had tried to manifest, well, I want a better job in corporate America, or I want a better apartment in New York City, those things would have been against my plan. There was just no way I could have foreseen what it was going to be. And that's why I say, don't look
Well,
ahead. When you look backwards, you can see it. But,
and
looking ahead, you can't.
human behavior is all about preferences, and
Hmm.
it's all about evolvement, and it's all about better for most
Yeah.
people. In other words, it and it's all been proven. We no longer ride horses to our job. So everything has evolved and it will continue to
Right.
evolve. That's how we're designed. It's a system we were designed to live. And then we have preferences. Now, this is very interesting. Thomas Leonard, who is known by many in the coaching industry as the father of modern coaching, and he said, we are compelled to do what we're doing until we're compelled to do something else.
Right.
So somebody said to you, hey, or maybe you read something. So something happened to
What happened was there was a pattern that I thought, again in my later 30s, I thought this is a pattern. This is well, basically what it was is I was the only woman in the industry, and they would give me the worst territory. I'd make it the best territory. They'd let me go and give it to the guy. And it was like, wait a minute. Yeah. The first couple times you think, well, I'll just
right.
work
You saw
harder.
the pattern.
Yeah. And then finally I thought, this is a pattern. This is always going to go on, and I don't want this pattern.
Right. You want
So,
something better.
right. Or different. Or like, I don't want this pattern. This is not enjoyable here. Yeah.
And that's when I say that's when it's up and over. We're
Hmm.
going to blow that pop stand. We're going to do
Right.
something. We're going to do something that's a better preference for us.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's a great point for all the listeners, is to really know if there is something that you're not liking, it's not your
Right.
preference,
Or it's
and
not working for you
or
anymore.
it's not working for
Yeah.
you. You can't control other people. I mean, okay, your kids a little bit, but frankly, like you can't control your boss, you can't really control your coworkers, all of that.
Yeah.
So, hopefully there's a gift in there. There's some gift in there, and basically there's probably a better place for you. And I always tell people I just had this happen. um there was a situation where a young 19-year-old was on a certain track and they had planned for certain things, and then suddenly out of nowhere it was like, nope, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And within a week they got a better option.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they were concerned, though the parents were concerned. uh you get concerned when
Sure.
there's a bubble in the plan.
Right.
And I was doing the reading, and I was like, oh no, this is unbelievable. This is going to expand his abilities. So on his resume, it's not just this, but it's also this, because he has a 4-month internship in a supportive category, but it's expanding his awareness. And
Right.
it's like it's building his repertoire of things. And I'm just going to tell you something, mention something, because we all do get some inklings sometimes, especially if we're aware and if we work at it, of what's coming ahead. And it's the idea that we can't know is not a finite, because many of us do know. And it's basically reading the energy. I'm a professional divine energy reader, so I'm reading energy. And so a person that I have an example with, I was talking to this person and they said, oh, my mom needs to buy a house. And I said, okay. And we weren't really talking about that, she just mentioned it. Well, right away I saw a calendar, and I said, oh, she's going to buy that house between January 16th and January 20th. And she goes, oh, that's impossible. And I said, oh, I said, why is it impossible? And she said, well, because her mother was going to have a medical situation taken care of, and she's going to be in the hospital. And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, I trust what I'm given, because why wouldn't I? It's there for a reason.
Right.
And I said, I don't think it's going to make a big deal of anything. But a calendar just dropped down in front of me while we're talking about her buying the house. I said, she's going to buy that house in between the 16th and the 20th. That's all. And so I share information that I'm given. I don't need to tie into it. It doesn't matter. But she called me 2 months later and she says, "You're not going to believe this." I go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to believe it because
Yeah.
this is the walk."
Yeah.
And she said the realtor called her mother in the hospital
Yeah.
on January, and she bought that house on January 20th. So we can know
Yeah.
things, and this is part of the things that I teach, and these are, spiritual gifts, and we have access to those.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pivot again too, because I wanted you to go into your acute system and the 15 types of divine intervention.
Yes, well, the acute system is a 5-step system that when I had almost finished the book, I knew that I wanted to teach this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a teacher, and so I thought, well, simplicity is really important, and how do I teach what I'm doing? And everybody's going to do it their own kind of unique way, but I do believe that there are, let's say, foundational things that are important. And so I just started writing these things. There's about 5 things, and I noticed, again, it was a divine nudge. I don't think I would have noticed it by myself. It was like, oh, look again.
Yeah.
ACUTE. And the A is for accept. Accept that you're a spiritual being.
Mm-hmm.
And you're always going to be a spiritual being. Right now, we're in a body, physical body, but when we transform, we're going to be in the same spiritual body. And so accept that that's how this is how it is. And so a lot of people don't accept that. And so if you don't have that step in place, it's going to be a longer road to beginning, expanding your intuition
Right.
and intuitive abilities. So the second step is claim. The C is claim. So it's one thing. Maybe Barb and Karoleen can do it, but I can't. No,
Oh, I
you
see.
can.
Yeah.
We're all designed the same way. We all have intuition intact. We just maybe not be listening or using it or know
Mm-hmm.
how. So the third one is the you in acute. Utilize all the tips, the strategies, and the tools, because it's like driving a car. If you've never driven a car before, you're going to need to learn. So there's
Mm-hmm.
some learning to do.
Yeah.
And that's what's in my program, so that people can actually learn how to do this if they want to. And then the fourth is trust. T is for trust. And that is where you really have to let go and surrender that
Mm-hmm.
you are not controlling everything. This system's in place, it works, and it will work, probably forever. And it's about trusting that it does work and it will work for you too. And then E is to enjoy it. I just
Yeah.
believe that we're not meant to be afraid. Anything new is a little, afraid. I was afraid when I was, learning how to do the mediumship part. But after a while, I always say put purpose before fear. I thought I
Mm-hmm.
would rather help somebody than not help somebody and just stay in my fear. So I encourage people to look at their fear and say, well, that's part of life. It's a new thing. But fear shouldn't be the top thing. It should just say, oh, yeah, it's a new thing. My first podcast, I didn't really know. I hope I got everything plugged in. But you learn after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all doing new things. So it's
Yeah.
okay to have a little fear, and it's going to be right there. You can't get rid of it. But put your purpose, like, what do you want to do? I wanted to help people. And so that's how I got here, over my fear. And I'm not saying I didn't have fear. I had fear,
Mm-hmm.
but I let my purpose lead.
So you recognize it and move forward. That kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, how do you make a cake? Well, I want the cake. I'm going to go make it. I'm going to
Right.
learn how to make it.
Mm-hmm. And it might take 2 or 3 times.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, how about there are types of divine intervention?
Yeah. And there's probably more, but these 15, after I got 15, I said, that's plenty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I say they're all miracles. They're all divinely given. Um, but some of the main ones, manifesting,
Mm-hmm.
that's a system. Dreams, premonition. And a lot of people say, well, I I can't do mediumship. I go, well, have you ever had a dream where your mom was in it or your
Yeah.
grandma? Well, that, this is all beta waves, beta and theta and alpha waves. And when you can get to a place where you're not controlling that and not fearful, because everybody has these dreams that I've talked to, and it's just a matter of accepting that, well, maybe you could, if you wanted to, maybe you could focus. You're not gonna ride the bike unless you get on the bike.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
watch other people do this, and that's fine. And if you don't have any interest, that's fine. But I had a real desired interest after I had such an amazing reading with my mom after she had died. And I've been doing, the psychic things for so long that it was just a perfect fit. And I find more and more people are waking up. They're waking up to
Hmm.
their spiritual
The veil
abilities.
is getting thin.
The
Yeah.
veil is getting thin, and they
Yeah.
and this is the fun part. After you've had a couple experiences,
Hmm.
and that's why, after 450, how many do I need even to add on? It's a thing. It's not, they
Yeah.
have a TV shows, there's books about this. So it's not like, oh, I don't know. It's a thing. And it's for everyone. And it's to it's to help us. Can you imagine this is what I say. Imagine just being dropped on earth without a lifeline. Oh, no. We were loved and protected and guided so much. And so angels, I mean, I
Hmm.
there an angel came to me when my mom was in the hospital and helped me out. And then she disappeared. I went, where'd she go?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I talk to people all over the place and they say, oh, this happened to me and this happened to me. So we're all having these experiences. It's
Hmm.
time you gave yourself credit. And if you want to learn more, you can.
Yeah. So, which brings me to where to get to your book.
Yes. Well, you can get Opening to Divine Intervention at Amazon.com.
Hmm.
Um,
And it's out
and
there now.
Yes, it is out there now. And you can go to my website, Karoleen Fober, and I have a free thing for everybody. You can get an intuition assessment. It's
Okay,
only,
before you say that though, will you
oh,
spell your website?
yes, it's Karoleen Fober, my name, Karoleen, Fober, F as in Frank, O, B as in boy, ER.com.
Great.
And
Thanks.
okay, I know. And I have a free thing for you. It's a free intuition assessment, and by taking it, you will learn about intuition, and you'll also find out kind of where you're at and what's maybe the next step.
Oh, that's interesting. That's fun. That's
Yeah.
good. And then can people work with you? Do you have workshops coming up or, can they work with you one on one? And how
Yes.
did they go about that?
Right on the website, if you just kind of look around a little bit, you'll see a program. It is my intuition mastery accelerator program,
Hmm.
and it has everything we've talked about in it today. 15 modules, and it covers manifesting, it covers uh, divine journaling, it covers mediumship, it covers alignment, to keep your
Hmm.
health. So it covers it's like Wayne Dyer used to say, it's the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
And you could do that self-study. A lot of people like to do it self-study on their own.
Hmm.
But I also have coaching programs, and you can do a free discovery call and we can look at the options, because I have several different programs for people to look at, whichever one's best for you.
Yeah, great. Hey, thanks so much for being on. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. We've been everywhere. And you've been great on a lot of the questions that I've had. That I always think if I have these questions, my listeners have these questions. And you've been great in addressing those. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.